as the cars go through turns 2 and now turn 3. Zeb's not quite as threatening on the back of Lucas Cartel. Some lap traffic up ahead over the horizon, though. Could that be a factor as they run down towards turn 5? Which line will the Toyota take? It's the line that avoids everything completely. Quite conscious driving there. And a huge penalty, a 64-second penalty for a pit stop infringement to Araujo Competição. That's a significant penalty added to the car that's now running 6th overall, and that will take them out of contention.
Well, they might have been under the impression it was a 79-second minimum pit stop time as well, because their pit stop time was 1 minute and 22 seconds, which is what, 25, 26, 27 seconds shorter than anybody else's. So a little bit of confusion there. They clearly didn't get the memo, and all other teams did.
Or they listened to me, in case,
which is always a mistake.
Very sorry, but I was going off of what was printed in the regulations. However, I was not in the driver's briefing, which is what they should listen to. Cartel and Zebis run through turn 13 now. They've got a huge amount of clear track up ahead of them, incidentally. They've got maybe 30 seconds worth of time to make up on the next car ahead. So they've got clear runs. There's nothing for Cartel to worry about except the Porsche behind him, albeit that's a significant worry. Let's see if he does it again. Yes, he does. That line a bit less intense than the previous lap, less of a bucking Bronco effect as they went to the apex of turn 15, and this time by, I think he's got a slightly better run out of the corner as well, so Zebis isn't quite going to be as threatening by the end of the straight, but he does close in, and close in some more. The Porsche plus slipstream equals mighty straight line speed.
Yes, it certainly does, but not quite as close this time into the first few corners, which means that move he attempted a few laps ago here at turn 3 isn't quite on this time, so they stay as they were. The hill we go into turn 4, on board with Frederick Zebis, and again Cartel never does hit the apex at turn 4, but really rockets off the corner surprisingly well, so he's taking some unorthodox lines, but because of how different these two cars are, I suppose that's what you just see sometimes, isn't it? With balance of performance, you generate the lap time differently depending on which car you are in. Quick point, by the way, not to drag our attention away from this just yet, but keep one eye on the club class battle.
Yes.
Rafael Rayani leads in his McLaren, but Matis Plushkel in that Aston Martin V8 Vantage, 10.5 seconds back, but 5 seconds nearly quicker than the McLaren a lap ago. We could yet have a change in club before the flag.
Yeah, Matis Plushkel on a mission in the first generation Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4, which was quite high up the overall order earlier on, of course, in those damp conditions in race number 2. Cartel and Zebis once again approaching the final corners of the lap, and well, I said I'm not sure how he was going to last 20 minutes. He's quarter of the way there. We've got 15 minutes and 20 seconds left to run here in this GT4 Winter Series pit stop race, and as of now, Lucas Cartel has done just about everything right, and it's worth us acknowledging that, I mean, Frederick Zebis is a newcomer to this game, but Cartel isn't far behind either. He's done a season of GT4 racing prior, but before that he was in cross cars on an off-road basis. He's had quite a unique run up the ladder, but clearly he's confident as he makes his step up those rungs.
It does rather explain some of the driving style choices we're seeing, doesn't it, from the Toyota driver? Genuinely, the little muscle memory things that you pick up from what you did earlier in your career, you sometimes bring through later on. Another front brake lock up there, though, for Cartel. That's both drivers in that car. We've seen doing that on different occasions into turn 3. Very, very bizarre. I'm intrigued if we do get a chance to speak to them after the race to maybe get an answer on that, whether both drivers are playing around with brake bias or there's just an issue of some sort. But for both of them to lock a front brake into that corner when the car generally looks very loose rather than front-end grip limited is odd.
Well, the fact that it is indeed both loose yet also locking up the front axle sometimes makes me think maybe less brake bias and more differential.
True.
Because, of course, the diff has a role to play in, yes, out-of-corner traction, but also in deceleration. And it does look a little bit, again, of a bucking Bronco. One way or the other, whether it's the rear or the front that's causing the drama in the moment, it does often look like they are fighting something. Of course, a lively car is often a quick car, but it looks like a bit of a knife edge.
It does, but hey, if they can ride that knife edge to the top step of the podium, I'm sure they'll be saying, yep, more of the same next time, please. That is the setup that we like. It might not be that comfortable, but yielding good results for them so far. They won yesterday, remember, and on course, it seemed, to claim the double earlier on this morning. Can they now make amends for that? Both of these teams really out for retribution, aren't they? They both will feel that results have slipped through their fingers this weekend. The penalty for the Speedy Motorsport car earlier on today, the mechanical failure yesterday for W&S Motorsport's Porsche, and they both will really want to try and end the weekend on a high. Take a mental note of that gap between the two cars as they cross the line. It was 6.5 tenths of a second or so, but look at the way that Lucas Cartel is weaving to try and break the toe. The gap's so much shorter, maybe half as wide as they arrive at the braking zone for turn 1. And that is that little straight line speed advantage in the second half of the straight for the Porsche, really paying dividends for Zebis. If he's going to make a move, I really feel he has to take advantage of that and make something happen in this first sector.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's a good run out of turn 4 from Zebis. It could be a move on here at turn 5, but Cartel wisely covers the inside. Both parties looking like they're right on the limit under braking. And now Cartel will be hoping that the Porsche didn't get too good of a run. I think he is going to be safe when he turns into the apex of turn 7, but certainly Zebis is making this a pressure cooker situation.
Did you see the black lines left by Frederick Zebis' Porsche weaving around in the braking zone? As you said, both absolutely on the limit. It's one of the things I really like about GT4. GT3 in modern day GT racing often takes centre stage, doesn't it? The cars are a bit louder, a bit faster, a bit flashier, but the way these GT4 cars, because they don't have the same level of aerodynamic capability as a GT3, the way they move around, the drivers really have to manhandle them to get a good lap time out of them. It's fascinating to watch.
Okay, so here is the club class battle, and we've got an interesting situation here actually, because between the Zome racing car that leads the class and the very closing in Aston Martin second in class is the other Zome racing McLaren. So will the blue flags be adhered to and respected to the nth degree, or will there be a little bit of gamesmanship, I wonder? The club class battle is a little bit further apart than I thought it would be based on the previous lap, but it is a bit of an ebb and flow situation. The top two, meanwhile, have come across the line 8 tenths apart, so we're not missing anything there that time across the start-finish line. They're a little bit further apart than they have been on previous laps. Oh, but the Aston is slow. Matis Pushkel out of the corner there, having a problem. He's now got the car back underway again, but it looks like something went wrong momentarily there, somewhere in the inner workings of the Aston.
Yeah, that was bizarre, wasn't it? Again, under acceleration out of a corner, it just seemed to lose all forward momentum. It's still going. It is still going at, I'd say, seemingly race speed. It still sounds excellent, as always. So a very odd little situation, and that's a couple of cars we've seen having that little stutter on acceleration out of tight corners. He's visibly closing back in again now, though, so let's hope whatever that issue was, it doesn't rear its head again.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Pushkel can continue on and whether that was a one-off, but Cartel and Zebis, I said they were 8 tenths apart at the line. There was also half a second of difference through Sector 1 and Sector 2, so I think they're right back on top of each other now as they head through Sector 2 and head towards Turn 10, Turn 11. We'll try and touch base with them again in a short moment, but we'll see as well whether Pushkel and Riani can meet each other in the middle, or whether the Aston does have some sort of terminal issue. But it's Cartel from Zebis at the front of the field. And for how much longer? Because Cartel has been under so much pressure in this race. And again, I'd be giving him a thorough round of applause if he makes it the duration.
Well, look at that. The gap's back out again now. The middle part of the lap, the Toyota is good. It's the only place it really loses out is that first sector. Again, a very wide line through the final turn, but this is maybe the biggest distance we've seen between the two of them for a while. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? It's so much quicker, the Porsche through Sector 1. And the rest of the lap, the Toyota just seems to have that edge. What was the gap this time? By 1.002. So the gap keeps extending just slightly.
I think where the Porsche is strong is into this braking zone at 3 and then the change of direction into 4. Look at the way that Zebis closes in on the tight right-hander, carries decent speed then uphill through turn 4. yes, there are tight corners elsewhere, but they're slightly longer corners. They're not necessarily these short, sharp changes of direction that you have in the first sector. That's where the Porsche is strong. I think through some of the longer, more sweeping turns elsewhere, the front-engine Toyota has the advantage. It's long been the fascination, really, of modern-day GT racing. In fact, not even just modern-day GT racing, but cars that do have different strengths and weaknesses, and seeing that ebb and flow, in this case, quite significantly over the course of a lap.
Yes, absolutely right. So the 26 car has made it over halfway in the 20-minute quest to hold off Frederik Zebis. Zebis, who came more conventionally through karting, but went straight from karting to GT4, so it's not the most conventional path, but it is one we see more and more people deciding to choose. And they'll emerge here from turn 12 and turn 13, I think markedly closer than they were a lap ago. And, oh, goodness me, that was a huge snap. I think that car is getting gradually, progressively harder and harder to deal with under the rear of Lucas Cartel.
Nothing against the Toyota at all, but if you offered me a drive in both of these cars right now, I think I'd be keener to jump into the Porsche than the Supra. It looks a real handful, doesn't it? But kudos to Lucas Cartel. He's not made a big mistake yet. Has to just survive another 7.5 minutes or so of this assault from Frederik Zebis, and he will claim that team's second race victory of the weekend. It's been an absolutely brilliant third GT4 Winter Series race of the weekend, this, and both drivers, you would argue, deserve to win. Only one team can, of course. Is it going to be Speedy Motorsport, or will W&S grab their first victory of the weekend?
That is the golden question, the question with a golden ticket attached to it, and that was a huge slide. I'll be honest, I thought the tyre was going down on Cartel in that braking zone for turn 13, because it was such a violent snap, but the Belgian did a great job holding on to it, and we've got some fighting here between Mesh and the younger of the Cronin. So we've got Colin Cronin bouncing back and then having a wiggle all of his own. Joel Mesh losing out then. P5 it is for Colin Cronin.
Well, I think we're seeing a few drivers struggle with tyres, aren't we? And they are largely the drivers who have the least GT4 experience. And I think they are, to my point that I made best part of an hour ago now, I think they are finding that in these slightly warmer conditions maybe, they've maybe not worn out the tyres. Sometimes it's easy to use the term tyre wear to describe grip diminishing over the course of a race. It's often more pressure and temperature that the drivers have built up in those Pirelli tyres, which are more than capable of going the distance, but if you aggravate them a bit too much too soon, then you do start to then run out of grip. And of course Colin Cronin, like his brother, not experienced at all in GT4 competition, and so maybe learning that right before our very eyes. 5 3/4 minutes to go though. Where, if anywhere, can Zebis make this move? He's had a few little goes, but just can't seemingly get close enough at the right part of the lap.
No, absolutely right. Meanwhile, at turn 1, about a lap ago, we did have that change for the club class lead. Matis Plushkel and Rafael Riani have swapped places. So Plushkel, the vastly experienced sports car racer at this point for the Team Muka team, has made that position up. So it was, I think they were side by side into the first corner about a lap and a half ago, and it was always looking likely for Plushkel, but he now leads in the club class and is hunting down Pavel Savicka to get into the overall top 10.
That he is. We'll see whether he's able to do that, closing in quite quickly on the little Lotus Emira. And one of the newer GT4 cars in the world, up against certainly the oldest car on this grid. And it looks as though advantage lies with the older of the two cars, doesn't it? Looks like Plushkel should be able to make this move stick, maybe a bit deep into the corner there for Savicka. Does that give Plushkel the chance down the hill? Yep, sweeps round the outside. Dab of the brakes midway through the corner. That's not normally to be advised, but just had to settle the car slightly and does manage to wrangle up the Lotus. So 2 places gained within, what, half a lap or so?
Yeah, very good driving there from Matis Plushkel, a lap and a half or so. Yeah, it was a very quick progress that Plushkel is making through the field. Zebis there got slightly held up in amongst that lappery there of the Jose Garcia Sunda Motorworks Porsche, and the gap is going to be around a second, I think, by the time they come out of turn 13. Yeah, this is an interesting battle, isn't it? Because, again, Cartel's car looks so much more loose and unsettled and tricky, but Zebis hasn't quite got what it takes to properly challenge.
I also think the front splitter's come loose, hasn't it?
Oh,
yes, it has. Look at that. You spotted a bit of something flying out of the bottom of the car earlier on. I think he's dislodged that front splitter, which, if anything, will cure some of the oversteer that he's had up to this point, although won't necessarily aid overall lap time. So he really has not necessarily driven the wheels off the Supra, but driven the front splitter off, and now smoke, it's rubbing, isn't it, on the front of the car?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there may have been some contact or something in that lappery shortly before we switched to it, because that was not like that a lap ago. Yes, it can get progressively worse, but it feels quite sudden, the front end of that car getting worse. I mean, the front took a hefty knock, of course, in the previous race with Hudson Schwartz, but it is clearly struggling, and with 3 minutes left to go, he's now going to be praying, if he even knows about it, that splitter stays on.
I thought I spotted a small panel gap a few laps ago. It wasn't too much to be worried about, but every time he bounces over those curbs into the final corner, of course, you're putting pressure on the nose of the car. It's scraping on the ground. It may well have dislodged it. Can't be sure, obviously, but again, a question to ask him perhaps after the race. And now more bits of the Supra falling off. It's really loose, and that now will be a big enough vibration that he will be fully aware of what's going on at the front of that car. Can he drag it around the final 2.5 minutes and keep Frederik Sebis at bay? To his credit, I mean, he's keeping the Porsche at arm's length for now, although in this technical middle sector where you rely on that front downforce, he is seemingly struggling.
He really is. Yeah, this is not a comfortable scenario in the slightest for Lucas Cartel. The Toyota GR Supra is dismantling itself from the front end back at the moment for him, and he's having to watch the mirrors for Sebis, who was 1.4 seconds back at the start of the lap. Now the gap is well within a second. That car looking increasingly second hand. There's going to be one more lap to go this time by. Just one more lap between Cartel and a victory, but will the car be under Cartel in a lap's time?
Cartel went nowhere near that curb on the way into the final corner. That's cost him speed onto the straight, and I think Sebis will be close enough. We're on board with the second place man, and there is nothing that Lucas Cartel can do. The front bodywork is rubbing on the tyres. He's got no front downforce. He's got no choice now but to just nurse it home. In fact, I think it's come off completely now. It's got lodged underneath that front tyre, and he'll do well now to limp home even in second place.
Yeah, it went under the tyre as they came over the crest onto the main straight. So that is the end of the victory bid, unfortunately, for Lucas Cartel and Hudson Schwartz. And I feel for Hudson in particular, because he'll be sat there ruining what he's just been seeing, as will the entire team. Was a good opportunity to try to bounce back from the drama in the earlier race, but now they're going to have to settle for second. It looks like it's lodged itself kind of between the wheels at a diagonal manner, and it should stay on from there. But unfortunately, after defending so valiantly for the better part of 20 minutes, Cartel is not going to be able to hold off, and he has not been able to hold off Frederik Sebis, who is now heading to the checkered flag, which will await him at the conclusion of this lap.
There's a chance, by the way, that we could have a change for third before the end. Ravi Ramid has been reeled in by Hugo back. Hugo was nearly a second quicker than him last time by, and there was less than a second between them beginning this final lap. So there we go. There they are, absolutely together now. BMW from McLaren with half a lap to go. Might have been the longest race of the weekend, this, but it's packed an awful lot of action into it and kept us guessing right to the flag.
Absolutely right. Looks like Ramid has control of the situation, though, with just a few corners left for him. Frederik Sebis has just one turn between himself and a victory. The Pro-Am entry of Sebis and Tim Horrell, oftentimes the quickest out there on the circuit, whether it's the bronze driver or the silver at the helm. They should be very proud of their lineup down there at WNS Motorsport. A stellar drive to the checkered flag, and Lucas Cartel in second position. A very, very wounded Toyota Supra, 4.6 seconds at the line between the two of them. Ravi Ramid does hold on to third place, and I did think that back looked slow. He was slow on that last lap, finally crossed the line in fourth place. We saw the car woe up shortly after he came back out after the pits. I wonder if there was an intermittent issue with the Frenchman's machine. The AM class winner should be Joachim Bolting. He's the next class winner that we're expecting across the start-finish line, and we see him cross the line now to take the AM class win. So Bolting succeeds in his task there, and he will finish ahead of Bobrovs in 9th overall and 2nd in class. And then rounding out the top 10 will be our club class winner, that being the Aston Martin V8 Vantage of Matis Pluschkel. The BWT Muka Motorsport entry will come over the line after Alexander's Bobrovs, who now will come over the crest of the hill to see the checkered flag and come 2nd in the AM class. A solid performance from him this weekend. Of course, he won the AM class earlier on, having started the race on slick tyres. Despite him maybe not agreeing with his team's call, it worked out for them, and now he finishes 2nd in the longer race. The 111 car of Cedric Fuchs, I think they just came across the line, and then there was a bit of a drag race to the line between Svitska and Riani there. As a matter of fact, those two were very close together. And wait, Matis Pluschkel has gone missing. Matis Pluschkel on the final lap of the race hasn't crossed the line. I thought he was taking longer than expected. There's a yellow flag at turn 6. Did Pluschkel pull up at turn 6? I think he did. Yes. Oh, Matis Pluschkel on the final lap of the race has had to pull the car up. He's investigating to try and figure out what happened. We saw that car briefly enter what looked like a bit of a limp mode earlier on, and he's lost the club class win, unfortunately, at the last hurdle, and Rafael Riani has managed to win in the club classification. But for Thilo Goss and Matis Pluschkel, it is frustration right at the conclusion of what had been a very good weekend. No such concerns for W&S Motorsport. Their frustrations came in race 1 when the suspension gave out on the W&S car. We thought it was a brake disc initially. It turned out to be a wishbone that detonated or had its issue on the car, per the W&S source that told me that information. They got it repaired, and the car has been stellar all Sunday long. Tim Horrell and Frederick Zebis with a very, very impressive drive. And across from them at Speedy Motorsport, it is a round of applause. It is a performance to congratulate their young Mr. for, because he spent all of that stint defending from Zebis, but on the final lap, the increasingly barely held together front end finally collapsed, and Cartel has to settle for second best. Frederick Zebis, meanwhile, moving in from the world of karts, has had a very, very promising weekend here in the GT4 Winter Series. By my reckoning, his first weekend of car racing. And what a weekend it has proven to be. He and Tim Horrell will be celebrating that one up on the podium shortly, of course. And for Tim, I think he can really hold his head high on that first stint, because he was outpacing Silvers and leaving them in the dust. An absolutely fabulous attitude on Tim Horrell as well. Really friendly face in the paddock, and he clearly loves what he's doing, and increasingly he is very adept at what he's doing as well. It's not often a bronze can challenge for overall. Of course, Ravi Rami does much the same, and did much the same, although wasn't quite able to match the pace of Zebis and Cartel for that second stint of the race, but will be delighted with third overall, and of course a healthy haul of points as well within the Pro-Am category. I understand that Tim Horrell is going to miss Valencia in February. He's only set for 4 of 5 events as it stands in the GT4 Winter Series. So for Tim and for Frederick Zebis, there may be an element of kind of damage control there to see if they can try and challenge for the title without showing up to Valencia. Although, whatever the plan is on the weekend of Valencia, I suggest Tim might do some rescheduling if they're leading the championship in Pro-Am after the round at Estoril. Of course, he was the Pro-Am champion in 2025 and is looking to do the same in 2026 here in the GT4 Winter Series. 3 marks, of course, represented there on the overall podium from 3 different teams hailing from 3 different nations, as the drivers also hail from 3 different nations. It is a very multinational paddock, and a paddock that only really convenes in the winter. We don't see all of these teams race together on the most regular of basis elsewhere, although all 3 of the teams on this podium do compete in the GT4 European Series. But there are certainly some clashes that we don't otherwise get outside of the GT4 Winter Series. Some of the best teams in Europe converge to kick off their season in winning form. Hopefully in the next few moments we'll be able to hear from our winning driver. I can see him in conversation there, Frederick Zebis, having a chat with his team down at W&S Motorsport. Hugo back, incidentally, as we alluded to, he did really slow down on the final lap. So he was challenging Ravi Ramid for 3rd overall, as Andy McEwen stated. Yeah, lost some 4 seconds, effectively, to his best lap time on the last lap of the race. So I think something was not quite right for Hugo back. Colin Cronin and Joel Mesh rounding out the top half dozen places, and of course, Cronin also getting a pro-class podium. So the Cronin family head away from Portimão with a set of trophies to claim. And I think a very positive first weekend with RaceLab in GT4 competition. Of course, for Colin Cronin, the junior Cronin of the 2 brothers, it's his first effort in quote-unquote senior racing. He's raced cars in the Ginetta Junior Series, but in terms of professional racing at a senior level in a GT car, this is it. That's his first appearance, and I think it's one that he can look back on knowing he did well. I think his pace in that race actually was slightly better than his older brother, and I'm sure he'll notice that and maybe be needling his elder brother about that this evening, wherever they choose to have their dinner. Joachim Bulting working his way from the rear of the field to the AM Class win. I'm sure he'll be delighted with that. As I think Zome Racing will be very happy with their first appearance as a GT racing team. They are numerous in Caterham racing down here in Iberia, the Zome Racing outfit. But in terms of GTs, this was ground zero for them with the pair of 570S GT4s. And clearly, they've taken to it well. I'm sure they've had some support and some explanation on how these cars work from the SMC Barcelona team that had these cars before, but clearly Zome Racing landing on their feet. Let's go down to the podium as Izzy has caught up with our winning duo.
I have indeed. I have them alongside me. Tim, I'm going to start with you because obviously you had that great first stint. I mean, just talk us through it.
I just wanted to get out and stay in front, and I was able to do that. Then towards the end, the car started falling out a little bit from underneath of me, maybe pushing a little bit too hard. But was able to hand the car to Frederick, and he was able to close it out.
And a little bit of redemption for what happened yesterday.
Definitely, yeah, for both of us, really. Because we've had a great car all weekend long, thanks to my team. Without them, the car wouldn't be where it is. And yeah, we deserve to be on the top step this weekend, and we're here. So it's great.
Yeah, you do indeed. I mean, Frederick, when you took over the car, well, it was quite the battle with the car ahead of you, and then they picked up damage in the last, well, pretty much the last lap, and then it was over to you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Supra broke on one of the last laps. Unfortunate for him, but I took over the car and everything was felt fine, so I just took it to the end.
Well, you kept it entertaining until the end, and how good is it to finish the weekend like this?
Can I get that one again?
How good is it to finish the weekend like this?
Well, it's my first ever weekend in a car, so quite positive for me.
Well, congratulations, boys. Enjoy the podium, which we'll get to shortly.
good to have confirmation on that. I've said the statistic with a bit of an asterisk as to Frederik Zebis. It is indeed his first weekend. Let's take a look back then at the highlights of that race. The 60-minute pit stop race here, of course, in the GT4 Winter Series with a 10-minute pit window in the middle, so both drivers get their opportunity to go racing. We should be able to bring you some highlights of this in just a few moments. It's a shame, really, that we're ending the race day here, because look at that weather. It's the best that we've seen it so far out on the circuit. Frederik Zebis did win the race, as we know, along with Tim Horrell. Deserved winners Lucas Cartel and Hudson Schwartz will be ruining the damage to that Supra to take second place, ahead of the Pro-Am runners-up, Ravi Ramid and Charlie Robertson, because of course our overall winners also win in the Pro-Am class. Hugo back in 4th position along with Jaden Kelly. The Cronins in 5th place for Race Lab in their McLaren, finishing ahead of Joel Mesh and Enrico Ferderer, who I think were battling a car that wasn't quite optimised over the course of that race. Joachim Bolting wins Am from 7th overall, ahead of Alexander Bobrovs in 8th place. Pavel Savicka in 9th position, finishing just ahead of Rafael Riani, the ultimate club class winner after there was the issue for Matis Plushkel. Gonzalo Araujo finishing 11th ahead of Plushkel, whose car broke down right at the end. Cedric Fuchs in 13th, Antonio Duarte in 14th, Roy Schwartz in 15th position, and Jose Garcia rounding out the order in P60. An exciting motor race once again for the GT4 Winter Series. A lot of action packed into that hour, and we spent most of that last phase of the race wondering if Cartel could hold on, and then we spent the last minutes of the race wondering if the bodywork would hold on. Unfortunately, the answer to both turned out to be no, but they will come back and rally again, hopefully at Estoril. I'm not sure if they're confirmed to enter Estoril. On the provisional entry list, I think the answer is no, but they are testing with us at Estoril before the race weekend, so maybe there could be some temptation to go racing once again with us next week in the GT4 Winter Series. Obviously, we do have a lot of full-time entries, but also drivers dipping in and out to go to the circuits that suit the calendar best of all, and to get their eyes in ahead of the summer. But an increasing number of these teams in the paddock take this very seriously as a championship that they desperately want to win to kick off 2026 on the best foot possible. So then the top 5 finishing within 25 seconds of one another, which is a bit less close than the GTs usually are, the GT4 Winter Series. But I suppose we'll see how that changes as the season goes on. Ravi Ramid and Charlie Robertson, in their ever pragmatic ways, I'm sure we'll be having a frank conversation about where it went right and where it went wrong earlier on. Ravi wasn't quite able to find the same level of performance, I think, as what we saw on Sunday, or on Saturday, I should say, in race 1 of the weekend. So something not quite correct there, I think, for Ravi Ramid right at the end of the weekend. But it's all learning, it's all development. And of course, here at Portimão, where the GT4 European Series will conclude their season, that learning, that understanding perhaps of how the tyres work across the hour-long race, that is all critical stuff for Charlie and Ravi to take into their summer campaign. And again, we've alluded to it earlier in the weekend, but Ravi Ramid did the full season last year, albeit as an invitational entry, because the Evo spec BMW wasn't homologated at the time, but they
So we are ready to go with our final podium presentation of the weekend, and we have got our GT Winter Series drivers ready to head out onto the podium. We'll start with our club class drivers then. In third position, winners yesterday, Zone Racing's Breno Arruda and Antonio Duarte. They're somewhere in the back room, Breno and Antonio. Yep, come on, out onto the third step. The speaker has stopped working on top of the podium, so I'm going to have to shout extra loud. Onto the podium they go then. Now, we believe, I'm not sure if Thilo Goss is here. Yes, there we go. So second position in the end after that last lap issue, Matej Pluškal and Thilo Goss. Well, understandably, they'd have been much happier with the class win, but the second place is still a solid result for the Aston Martin pairing. It is, though, a class win in the club class, again for Zone Racing, Luis Hagar and Rafael Rayani. Congratulations, onto the top step of the podium they go. They get a huge cheer from the crowd basking in the sunshine down below. And our club class podium finishers are going to celebrate on the podium. So, handshakes all around with our top three. We've got Mark and Sergio from GEDLICH handing out the trophies. Oleg from Pirelli with the winner's trophy. And as the drivers pose for the photos, I'm sure some of them will be quite keen to spray the champagne in a moment or two. And they gather together at the top of the podium. There's just about room for them all, I think, up there. There we go. It's a bit of a squeeze. 6 drivers on the top step of the Portimão podium celebrating a final race success in the club class. Congratulations then to our club class top 3. Zone Racing getting 2 cars into the top 3 positions. And of course, the BWT Muka Motorsport Aston Martin pairing of Matej Pluškal and Thilo Goss up there as well. So, club class podium then complete. We will move on next to the AM category. And we will just redress the podium first of all. Again, the AM class, pretty entertaining, particularly in the early stages. But in the end, we will have our top 3 teams, I believe. Yep, there we go. Some more bottles of Quintas das Arcas bubbly brought out onto the podium. And I think we are ready to go. So, ready to go with our AM class podium then. We start with our third place team, Roy Schwartz and Andreas Zermatis. Congratulations, guys. Onto the third step go the Speedy Motorsport pairing. That car was third this morning in race 2 as well in the AM class, and they get themselves another podium finish. Second position, having had a race win earlier on today, Team VRT's Alexander Bobrovs. A successful day for Alexander. He's been right in the thick of the battles all weekend long, and the VRT driver climbs up to the second step of the podium. To the top step, though, once again, a second victory of the weekend for WNS Motorsports, Joachim Bolting. Well done, Joachim. Onto the top step, and another race win for the WNS driver then. A win yesterday, second in class earlier on today, and celebrates now a race victory then, the Pirelli cap on his head. He points to the team down below, and Joachim Bolting, who always has a smile on his face, has even more reason to be happy after what was another really strong weekend for him. Come wet or dry, Joachim Bolting was on the pace and looking strong. They gather together again for the photographs. And I will try and get in there and have a little chat with Joachim. I think he's always good for a little interview. We'll see what they're doing with the bubbly first. Actually, let's not step forward just yet. I'll wander out of the way of the champagne shower, at the centre of which is Joachim Bolting, who has, well, not quite saved enough of his own fizz to get his own back on his fellow podium finishers. And Joachim Bolting celebrates another win in the AM class. Let's have a quick word with Joachim, if that's okay. Come down here, Joachim. Strong weekend for you. Nice to end it with another race win. Are you satisfied with your Portimão weekend?
Yes, it could have been a little bit better, but you know, we made a mistake with the wrong tires in the second race. But let us look what will be happening in Estoril.
Estoril, a very different kind of racetrack, of course, but you've gone well there in the past. Are you confident?
I think so, because I've seen that it will be wet again, and wet is my condition, what I like. So just let us look what will be happening.
If we see you dancing, it's a rain dance that you're doing, I think.
That's what it is.
Jürgen Bolting then, our race winner in the AM category for our third GT4 Winter Series race of the weekend. Congratulations, Jürgen, and the rest of our AM drivers. Pro-Am up next then, and again, some familiar faces, at least on the bottom two steps of the podium. In third position in Pro-Am, Blue Garage Racing's Pavel and Troy Savicka. Well done, guys. On to the third step of the podium they will go. They've had a second and a third already this weekend, and another third step of the podium visit for them in race number 3. Now, it's one step lower on the podium than they've been used to so far this weekend, but concluding a good weekend for L'Espace Bienvenu, Ravi Ramid and Charlie Robertson. Well done, guys. Another podium finish, second place for the BMW pairing, who were leading early on, of course, only losing out during the pit stop window. It is, though, a first visit of the weekend to the podium for this W&S Motorsport pairing. After disaster struck when they were running well yesterday, it's a redemption story for Frederik Zebis and Tim Horrell. Well done, guys. Out onto the podium they will head. What a drive it was from this pairing, who took the fight well and truly to the pro drivers and are a very, very popular pair of race winners. Tim will be given some assistance onto the top step of the podium so that he can thoroughly join in the celebrations with the teams. And a well-deserved victory. This team have taken massive steps forward over the last 12 months or so, and it's great to see them properly taking the fight to the pros. Tim Horrell and Frederik Zebis celebrate the win. They will receive their winner's trophy momentarily from Oleg from Pirelli. A trophy each to take home with them, and that is well deserved after what has been a tough weekend up to this point, but managing to bounce back in the third race and claim another win. Congratulations then to our Pro-Am podium finishers. They will again gather together for some photos. We've already heard from our race winners, so we'll let them spray the champagne, and I will get well and truly out of the way before the champagne shower begins. And Ravi Ramid, as always, quick to get the cork, well, tried to be quick to get the cork out. Charlie Robertson very, very respectfully sprays out into the crowd, and they enjoy the celebrations after a brilliant race for the Pro-Am category. Well done, guys. So, Pro-Am podium done. One more set of podium drivers to get out there in a moment. The pro teams. Congratulations once more, though, to our Pro-Am competitors, and we'll see many of them back out again in a week's time in Estoril. So we're nearly at the end of our final set of podiums after what's been a very entertaining opening weekend of GT Winter Series and GT4 Winter Series racing here at Portimão. And the pro drivers then will be heading out soon. And in fact, the first pair of drivers we will see on this pro podium, it will be the first time that we've seen them on the podium this weekend in what is very much a learning weekend for the Race Lab pairing. It is a solid third place finish though for Robert and Colin Cronin. Well done, guys. Out they go onto the third step of the podium, where seemingly they'll have to share a bottle of the Quintastas Arcas champagne. Hopefully we'll find a second bottle for them before too much longer. Race winners early today. It's second place in race number 3 for Greystone GT's Hugo Back and Jaden Kelly. Well done, second place, big smiles, thumbs up, a solid day's work for the Greystone GT pairing, and Hugo and Jaden shake hands with the Cronin brothers. It is, though, going to be a win for the team who won race 1 yesterday, Speedy Motorsport, in a car that really looked like it was tough to handle in the closing stages. Congratulations to our pro winners, Hudson Schwartz and Lucas Cartel. A tough race, all things considered, in a car that looked like it was pretty tough to handle. That damage to the front splitter, of course, cost them an overall race win, but they were able to still come home winners in the pro class for the second time this weekend in the GT4 Winter Series, and they will receive again a winner's trophy. I'm sure, though, they would have absolutely loved to have claimed an outright race victory That would have been the goal coming into the race. That was the goal even going on to the final lap, but that front splitter that came loose meant that unfortunately Lucas couldn't quite hang on. But it's a race win nonetheless in the class for Speedy Motorsport. Again, they pose for the photos down below. And a last round of applause then for our pro podium finishers, Racelab Greystone GT and Speedy Motorsport. The sun shines down on them as they conclude our podium presentations here at Portimão. The corks will fly, and it's the final champagne shower of the weekend here at Portimão to round out this opening weekend of GT Winter Series racing in absolutely fine fashion. It's been a fantastic weekend of racing. We have thoroughly enjoyed it. That went right down my ear. Thank you very much, Lucas, for that. And that just about concludes my role up here on the podium, and I believe we'll be hearing very shortly, we hope, from Izzy Browning to wrap up what has been a fantastic weekend of racing. And in fact, Izzy joins me now on the podium to give us her thoughts on what's been a fantastic opening weekend of the season.
Well, it certainly has been, Andy, and you've done a fantastic job all weekend long with the podium. But that does conclude the coverage for this weekend. A first weekend done and dusted in the Winter Series, and it has been an incredible weekend in the Winter Series for the GT Winter Series and the GT4 Winter Series. And the best news is we get to do it all over again in just a few days' time at the circuit of Estoril, where for the first time this year, the Formula Winter Series will also join us. Join us next week. We'll see you then.
We are racing in the Formula Winter Series for the second weekend. 3 seconds it does get a mighty run outside of the final corner. In the GT Winter Series, but already